13,000 reviews, and the Zero Res Gotta Love It guarantee makes it easy to get what you pay for. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $129, and don't forget about your air duct. Take an additional $75 off when you get your air duct Zero Res clean. Call Zero Res right now, 952-ZERO-RES, or go online to ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
I'm the host of Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth. In this radio show and podcast, we have conversations with heart-centered thought leaders to explore their pathway to becoming free, and we will shine a light on what has been hidden, often in plain sight, what they pay attention to, and how it has transformed them and others into a higher level thinking and feeling state during this time of great change. Explore being consciously aware, authentically free, and courageously sovereign with us. Sundays at 11 a.m. on AM 950, and check out our early release episodes that drop Thursdays on your favorite podcast apps.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 25, Wednesday sunny with a high near 39, and Thursday cloudy with a high around 38.
Get the appliances you've been dreaming of for less at Warner Stellian's year-end clearance. Shop closeouts, scratch and dent, and floor models. Plus, buy more to save more. Take 10% off 2 red tags and 15% off 3 at Warner Stellian's year-end clearance.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.
And this is Ghostbox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakken. Thank you very much for joining me tonight on this Thursday as we head closer and closer into Christmas season. We have a pretty interesting program tonight. It's going to be a lot of information that we're going to be talking about. So before we get to that, some important stuff. Adam, who is with me tonight.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever been to Mavericks?
Mavericks? No, I have not.
I don't even know if you know what it is.
I believe it was that delicious sandwich that you had on Facebook today.
It certainly is. Oh, it is Wednesday. Thank you, Danielle. It's not Thursday. It's Wednesday. We still have days to go.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I know, right? Oof. Your wife is a dose of reality, but I appreciate it all the same. That's why I went to Mavericks today, because I needed that. It must have been so good. It took me into like another dimension or something. But yeah, I always say whenever I go, if you have a chance, you got to get out there. Those sandwiches are ridiculous. They're roast beef sandwiches, everybody. Just amazing.
It looked fantastic as I saw that before after I got home from work. And it's just like, man, it looks great. That looks like such a good sandwich.
It was. And there was also right next to it is a place is like a pop culture. It's not even it is pop culture, but it's a lot more than that. It's really hard to explain over the radio. Mr. Zeros. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's
yeah, there's actually a couple of wrestling figures hanging on my wall in my man cave for Mr. Zeros.
I was there for 2 hours today talking to him.
Yeah, I dig that place.
Talking to Rick over there. We're going to have Rick on the show on January 9th. We're going to be talking about, I don't know what we're going to be talking about. It's probably not going to be a whole lot paranormal, but he's an interesting guy.
He really is.
Yeah. No, it was a great conversation, a great day, and really cool. But yeah, if you can have a chance to get out to Mavericks, I want to get a bunch of people out there. Let's go to Mavericks. Let's go get a roast beef sandwich. Not now, but
okay. I was going to say, I can find an old show. We could throw it on, but tonight's topic though, I mean, when we were talking to Angela before we went on, holy cow, this is going to be amazing.
So what we're going to do tonight is, you may remember we've had Miss Angela Boley on the show before. She is a psychic artist. Especially if you're watching on Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken and Facebook, you would have seen the pictures, the paintings that she has done. We're not really focusing on that tonight, at least in terms of showing it. One of the things when before we had Angela on, her and I were talking, and she was talking about one past life in particular that she has been doing research on for herself, of finding out basically who she was and who this person is, and that they have these memories. She's going to explain it a whole lot better than I will, but it's very important. And for those of you who have talked about, I want to do past life regression, I want to do all this. This is a very interesting story. I don't think this is how she got to where she is now, but we're going to find out about this. And I'm going to say that we're going to let this story really play out. And what I mean by that, when we get to the end of the hour, we may not be done with the story, and that's okay. We've already talked. Angela will probably come back in January. We'll finish it off, because I really wanted her to be able to take her time and tell the story the way that she wants to do it, because it is so important. And if you have any questions during it, please put it in the chat. You can also call in tonight, 952-946-6205. It's 952-946-6205. And I'd like to welcome Angela to Ghostbox Radio. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for joining. You know, we sit here, and you and I have been talking, you, Adam, and I have been talking, and it's really kind of hard to even know the proper place to start the story, because there's so many things to it. But at the most simplest, and I may even have this wrong, at the most simplest, we're talking, amongst everything else, we're talking about one person who you were, that you are trying to figure out and get that connection of being able to find not only as much as you can about this person, but actually find out where they are. Am I on the right track with that?
Right, because I had friends in that lifetime, and I want to find them too. And I know one of them was reincarnated and know who he is. And there's one that wasn't, and I would love to find not only the people I was with, I would love to see where they were buried. Even if they were overseas, I would love to make a trip to their graves.
So why don't we start with this? Who is this person that you are trying to track down?
Now, I was Frank Huff, and how I found out about this, when I was 21 and I was in college, it was close to the anniversary of my death in my past life. I did not realize that. And for months straight, I had dreams in chronological order of my past life, an entire lifetime, starting about age 6 up to when I died liberating a concentration camp in 1944. It started out with, first, even before it started chronological, I would get glimpses. I would get glimpses of my friend, who I'd later known as Klaus, who was an SS officer at the time. And he had joined the Allies. He had defected. And I kept seeing glimpses of him. I see glimpses of the camp. And it would then start from the beginning, where my earliest memories, I was growing up in a household, a German household, but in the United States. My grandfather had immigrated from Germany after World War I, and I was born in 1922 to my mother, and I never knew who my father was. I just knew I lived with my grandparents, my Oma and my Opa. It's German for grandma, grandpa, and my mother. And my mother and my grandmother were very, very close. In fact, they paid no attention to neither me or grandpa. And my grandfather was a grocer, and he loved to cook. He was a very gentle, very kind man. And I remember attending my grandmother's funeral, though, in 1928. I was 6 years old when she passed, and I remember it vividly. It was the first time I wore a suit. And every night I would dream this. I would dream this in chronological order up to when I died, and the dreams ended on the anniversary of the end of the Second World War, and you'll see why. When I attended the funeral, everything seemed fine, but when I got home, I heard this very heated argument between my grandfather and my mother. And he was saying, I just got, snippets of it. And I was afraid because I'd never heard my grandfather even raise his voice. He was such a gentle man. And he was saying, I don't care how you feel about me. You can hate me all you want, but you can't leave behind your son. And then I hear my mother walk out and slam the door, and I never saw her again.
Wow.
And my grandfather response to that was, he looked at me and he yelled, "Get out," which, in German, Austrian, "Get out." So he was upset. I went outside and I cried, and I was outside for a while until he said, "Come in." I made us something to eat, so I came back in, and he didn't talk for me for 2 weeks. He would had breakfast for me ready before I got to school, but he wouldn't talk to me, and
he'd still take care of you, but he was still angry.
Still angry.
Yeah.
And as a child, he don't understand these things.
No.
And I got very, very depressed. And he noticed that I was eating less and less. And then at the end of the second week, he put out cereal, but he wouldn't let me eat until he said, "Come here. I have to talk to you first."
Mm-hmm.
So he sat down in the chair. I walked over to him and he said, "I'm not angry at you." He said, he talked about how awful it was. I mean, he lost his wife. My mother walked out, and he said he was overwhelmed figuring out, how am I going to raise a little boy by myself? And he says, "I don't hate you. I love you." And then he hugged me, and I hugged him back, and it was a big, big hug. And we had such a deep connection after that. And we figured it out. I worked for my dad's business. He was a grocer. Mm-hmm. We had a farm. I would load his groceries up on the truck, for his business, and he'd take off and be sure to be up on time. Don't ever be late with my grandpa. He knew exactly when the vegetables were supposed to be picked and how long they would take to be picked, whatever each one it was.
Sure.
And you have to be up by that time, up ready to pick. Whenever time he said, if you're a minute late, he would be what he would do. Like if I was picking corn, I'd only was late once, he would look between the corn stalks and have a sour look on his face and sneak up on me. And I was loading crates on his truck, and then he startled me. I started the crate off, and then he put his head on one of the crates. I mean, like, Grandpa, I'm working right now.
I have a question for you. When you were getting these original these memories originally, and you mentioned that it was in German. You were hearing it in German, right?
Yes.
Were you? But did you know German, or did you kind of learn by hearing it? Like it immediately resonated.
It's like I know German, like my soul knows German, but this mind doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So in the dreams, I would hear German and I would understand German.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even wake up speaking German well enough that I could put it in a translator or go to somebody who knows German, and it would be grammatically correct and pronounced correctly, and they'd be able to interpret what I said.
Mm-hmm.
It was that amazing.
That is amazing. That's incredible.
But this body hasn't learned, this mind hasn't learned German fully, so I'm relearning German. And
Sure.
It becomes very important later on, as I explain, because I still carry scars from that lifetime here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have issues with permanent physical pain from where I was shot from my death. So a lot really has transferred to you, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit, but do you think that there's something unfinished
That's why that has
Yes.
stayed with you.
Yes, I think there's something unfinished. I didn't get to finish my mission, and I'll explain. By the time I was in high school, I met the woman I would marry. And I remember her name was Mary, and she became my fiance in high school, but I waited a full year after high school to marry her. And I remember that she was terrified of meeting my grandfather. She thought at that time, all Germans were mean. And I said, wait a minute, I'm German. I'm not mean. You're marrying me, right? And I said, I can't wait for this to happen because my grandfather's just a sweet old man. He's not mean. I just think this is going to be the funniest thing ever. So I took her to my grandpa's house, and my grandpa was very nice. He was in his hat. He was, he wore little glasses. He opened the door for her. He pulled a chair out for her in the kitchen. He put drinks out for her, and he sat down and he could say some things in English, like very polite greetings. And my wife, or my fiance at the time, she instantly took them. She said, I think he's adorable. And of course, my grandpa looks to me to interpret in German. And he said, what did she say? I said, she thinks you're adorable, Grandpa. Then he says, is this the woman you're going to marry? I said, yes, she is. She's the woman I'm going to marry. And he says, all right, then. It was hilarious. She was so scared. She calmed down, and he was just fine. His eyes just lit up when he looked at her. She was very, very beautiful. And I could see his little blue eyes. He just
That's great. Oh, that's amazing. Angela, why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and take our first break, and then we can get that out of the way. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Angela Boley. We're talking about a past life that she's been very much connected to, and that she needs to. She's on a quest. She's on a journey right now. We're going to talk more about it. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950.
Magus Books, your multicultural spiritual supply store. Stop in and expand your horizons with books, classes, readings, and supplies at magusbooks.com or in our shop at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis. From the best incense to beautiful statues, we have supplies and books for your spiritual explorations. Come in and chat with our knowledgeable staff and get what you need for your next adventure, whether you're fighting ghosts or opening your third eye. Check us out today at magusbooks.com.
Hello, I'm Jody, also known as Witch Jody on social media. I opened Midwest Witchery and Healing in historic Stillwater because as a nurse, I love to help others. When you come and visit Midwest Witchery and Healing, you will find everything from divination and magical services, classes to ritual tools, jewelries, handcrafted candles, witchy gear, and much more. My store is a safe environment for all on their own unique path. Look for the purple door. Find out more at MidwestWitcheryHealing.com.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation is the leading contributor to high energy bills, cold rooms, and ice dams. Great news, the energy-efficient pros at Snap Construction can fix it all. Stop the heat from leaking out and save. Call 612-333-SNAP or visit snapconstruction.com for your free infrared energy inspection. Install with Snap Construction and qualify for over $750 in rebates and incentives. State and city programs are now offering 0% financing for qualifying insulation upgrades. So call Snap Construction for your free insulation energy consultation and start saving on your energy bills. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed insulation and exterior contractor in the metro area.
Have you ever wanted a psychic, tarot, or astrology reading but didn't want to leave the comfort of your home? Well, now you can. Midwest Witchery and Healing offer these readings via Zoom, phone, and even by email. Just book online over at MidwestWitcheryHealing.com. That's MidwestWitcheryHealing.com. And don't forget, folks, that they do have an online store if you're not in the state and you want to check out what they have going on and see what they offer there. You can go get your stuff. You can order online, as well as there's gift cards there, too. If there's somebody that you want to give them a gift card and let them figure out what they want to get from there. A lot of selection. We've had Witch Jody on many times She's fantastic. The store is fantastic. Please go there and give it a shot. MidwestWitcheryHealing.com. We are talking with Angela Bowley. We've had her on before talking about being a psychic portrait artist. But tonight we're talking about something a little bit different. We are talking about past life that she is one out of a number of them that you have this connection that you need to finish something off here. And, one thing that struck me when you're talking about your fiance in this life, this memory that you have, and that's something that I want to try to make sure people are understanding, because you're going so easily back and forth in it, that I want to make sure people know when you're talking about this other life versus your current life. And the thing is like that, when you're talking about your grandpa and the look in your face, as if, for me, if I had seen my grandpa, my dad, my mom, who I haven't seen in years because they have passed, and that you saw that in that moment again, that's really pretty special. And I mean, that to me is, that has to be, it sounds like that there's some really hardships with what you're trying to do, but something like that has to be pretty amazing.
It is. And I'm very fortunate. My Opa, he did not reincarnate, but I feel his presence. I felt him visit me, and he has talked through a spirit box, and I got to hear his voice again. And of course, there aren't any German language radio stations, but we had an entire conversation in German.
Right.
With one another. And he remembered that conversation we had in the kitchen the day that he told me that he loved me and he didn't hate me. And he said it word for word in German.
And then you were able to understand it.
Yes, because I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. I was only 6 years old at the time. But, to resume the chronology of my memory.
Yeah.
After I got married, when I was 19 is when I got married. I got married like a year after graduating high school. And then I remember Pearl Harbor. And I hadn't been married very long after Pearl Harbor happened, and I went to enlist. So I signed up to enlist, and I was told, no, we're not ready for you yet, because I told them I had spoke German fluently. I grew up speaking German in the house. I grew up speaking English in the schools, so I was fluent in both language. And they said, no, we're creating a special office. It's forming right now. We're not ready for yet. When you're ready, when we're ready, we'll call you. Okay, so I waited.
Where were you located at this point? Where were you at this point?
I lived in Pennsylvania. I lived around Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. If you look at the enlistment record that I sent you, you'll see I enlisted out of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And they finally called me back. They called me back, and it was a really tough memory, leaving my wife behind.
Yeah.
Because we didn't say goodbye or anything.
And that's a memory. That's a memory that is as strong now as it was the day that it happened.
Yeah, it was. And we didn't say anything. And I just held her hand and I walked away. And then we went to the office, and the recruiter there was messing with me a little bit. And he says, you're going to join the German army. I'm like, I'm joining the Germans. How is this possible? And he said, well, welcome to the Office of Strategic Services. So the Office of Strategic Services, if you don't know your history, that was the CIA before it became known as the CIA. Because I would speak German, because I could speak German fluently. I apologize, I'm getting mixed up on my words, but because I could speak fluent German and English, I was sent to the OSS. So I was going to be a Secret Service agent, basically. And what they did was that they didn't fly me direct to Germany. I was flown several countries past Germany, deep into Europe. And I was to take a train ride. They told me that they had somebody working in the recruiting office in Germany that was working with all the paperwork, falsifying paperwork, so that we could show up as new recruits. Because I was in a group of other German-speaking Americans that were assigned to the OSS.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a secret train ride. This train ride, its schedule was only known to 3 people. To the person who ran the station, the person who was piloting, or the conductor, you want to call him the pilot. Some people call him the pilot of the train. And then also there was a third person on the train as well that was another railroad worker. And we were not even allowed to talk on the train. We all had our German uniforms on, complete with helmets and the coat. And I remember looking at the landscape, and I told the historian later, and he says, "Oh, I even know what train you were on.
Wow.
I even know what route you took." There was only 2 routes into Germany. And when there was a northern route and there was a southern route, and I was on the southern route. And we traversed several countries, a secret train ride. I arrived in Germany, and I remember that the Germans, when you got into the German army, they had standard issued for, every soldier. You got 2 condoms, cigarettes, and your MP40. Mm-hmm. And when I arrived, it said, "I don't care about anything else. Just give me the MP40. That's all I care about." So I had my MP40, and I had it with me all the time. Never without my MP40. I remember that I had guard duty. So basically, I was assigned as a guard to a number of assignments. One of them, I was at a school, and they made us soldiers and made the children stand up and sing the Holst of this Lied, which is a Nazi German song, propaganda song. I remembered, and I woke up singing it one day. I woke up singing it perfectly in German.
Presently.
Yes, presently. I woke up singing it. And I looked it up. I didn't know what I was singing, but I remember singing it. And then I looked it up, and I found that the words, lyrics, and I'm like, wow, this is a real song.
Wow.
And
I just want to say, I'm sorry, I just want to say real fast, because I had a couple people asking who just joined late. Yes, Angela Boley is our guest tonight. She is a psychic portrait artist, and what we are talking about, a past life that she is trying to track down more information and kind of finish something that started back then. And right now we're talking about this is taking place in World War II. Mm-hmm. And she is part of the American Army, but she's working to infiltrate the Germans.
That's right.
He is infiltrating the Germans.
Yes. Karl Frank Hoff. I was 6'3" at that time. Karl, and I went by Frank Hoff.
Frank.
And I was assigned to a number of guard duty assignments, and one of those assignments, one of my first OSS missions, was to help an administrator of this hospital defect. There was he expressed interest in wanting to defect to the Allies. That was the first time I was in civilian clothes. I had to get on my soldier's clothes, dress as civilian, somehow sneak by the staff of the hospital, get in and meet this administrator. When I met him, he said it was already too late, but he had told me and confided me about was that the Nazis had a secret program they were running in the hospitals where they were killing the elderly, the very young, the very old, the disabled, through the hospitals. And the doctors were working with the Nazis, switching out medications, altering surgeries and killing people. And to me, that was horrifying because I can't imagine, my Opa, somebody wanting to kill my Opa just because he was old. I can't imagine that. And he looked me right in the eyes and he says, "I can't defect. I've already killed too many people." And he didn't turn me in, surprisingly enough, but it was terrifying. It was a terrifying mission because I had to get past all the security that the hospital had. I had to get in and get out of there. Mm-hmm. And then one of my assignments, and that I remembered, and if you put me in Germany today, I could drive, just by looking land, I could drive the exact spot where I was a guard. I was a guard at a secret Nazi weapons development facility. And what they were developing, which I learned later through research, what was called the Elephant. It was a 100-ton tank that had both a diesel and a gasoline engine. They rolled it out towards the end of the war, but at the time, from my memory of it, I just walked in, and how this was set up, how this building was disguised. So it was disguised as several businesses. If you were to go drive by it on the outside, you would have thought they were just businesses together. But if you walked in, it was actually a warehouse. And you would have this huge machine in the middle of it. And there was a walkway for us at the top so we could grab our submachine guns and shoot down if we had to.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember reporting to duty and speaking to my commanding officer. And he was saying to me, he said a lot of the guards or the people that worked for him were not really behind the Nazis' ideal and really didn't have any heart of belief. And they were too nice to the workers. And we need to be strong. We need to believe. And of course, I had developed I created personalities for whatever job I had to do. So I went straight into the Nazi personality, and I saluted and said, the Nazis will not show weakness. We will not show weakness. We as Germans, we will, how do I put that? Germany will rule the world and we will detest weakness. We will not show, what did I put? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I remember saying to the effect of mercy, or something like mercy and compassion on the weak is a weakness for us. And we as Germans will conquer the world through our divisiveness and our strength.
And Angela, I'd like to break in for 1 second. Adam, have you been noticing it's got dark in here and then it lightened up?
Yeah, it did.
And that's not the lights.
No,
there was something really strange that was going on here, Angela, when you were talking about that. And I was looking on camera to see if it's noticeable because everything turns out lighter on the camera. I saw you looking in, Adam, and it just looked like that all you could see was the screen, and that it was really weird.
Yeah, there's a dark energy around that, and I reported to my officer, to my superior officer, and I walked up. My job duty was to guard this huge weapon that was being built, and I looked down on it from the catwalk, and I'd never seen anything that huge before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the other guard, I said, "What's being built here? Is that a plane?" Because it was so big. And the other guards at the shift change, they said, "Well, it's not a plane, but we're not told what this is. But rumor is that it's a tank." And if you look at the Elephant, if you look at what they call it, the Panzer Landswagen 8, it is the Panzer what they call it, the Panzer 8,
mm-hmm.
the largest tank that was ever built by the Germans. Keen to this, though, was a very emotional moment when I was up on the catwalk, and I waited for the guard's shift to change because I knew there was an elderly man that I kept watching who was a Jew, and he looked like he was on death's door. He was severely emaciated, and he was being used as a welder on this tank. Mm-hmm. And at the shift change, when I was the only guard and I was covering that change, I said, "Come up here, old man." And he came up to me on the scaffolding or on the catwalk there. And I said, "I'm willing to take the risk. You can be in your own home tomorrow, eating your own food and drinking wine. Just leave with me. I'll take you. I'll take the risk. I'll get you out of here. I'll rescue you." And he told me no. He said, "No, you need to fulfill your mission because you need to save many more lives. If you try to do this now, you'll get caught."
Because he was just one life out of so many more. Yeah. And
that broke my heart. I wanted to cry. Yeah. I wanted to cry right then and there, but I was in a uniform and I had to do my job.
How heroic of him, though, too, right?
Yeah, I admired him. I mean, with such strength. And you wouldn't think he had any strength left of him. Look at him, because he was so far gone. And he was still working, and he was so determined. He said, don't even watch over me. Mm. He said, "Don't even try to help me." And I felt
show
so
your hand.
awful.
Yep.
Yeah. And I felt off because all I could think of my grandfather. He reminded me of my grandfather in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that is when I met my friend Klaus, because I just remembered that we were where we were in Germany. It was around the winter time, and I was no longer on guard duty, but I had a barracks, and where I went, where the soldiers hung out at, was I think what they call it a gas house in Germany. It was just a bar, but the bar took up the entire building, and then you just had a few tiny little tables, and then there was a back room for the soldiers to talk in private. And my contact, my OSS contact, would usually give me a list of names to defect, and I noticed that towards the end of the war, that list kept getting longer. I had a photographic memory, so it only took me 4 or 5 seconds to see all those names in the list, but the person that I wanted to approach to defect was not on that list. And the reason being, I said, the soldier told me, you need to start, my OSS contact told me to start reaching soldiers, getting them to defect, start talking to them, and he wanted to encourage me to stay in my same rank. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to tell somebody that I am OSS. I have to expose myself in order to get them to defect, right? I have to tell them who I work for. And if I do that, I'm at risk of being killed. If I'm going to die, I'm going to go to the highest ranking officer. There was an officer that I knew of that was highly respected. His name was Klaus von Brunner. And he was not on that list, but I noticed a few things about him. First of all, he never tortured or killed anybody. He was an SS officer, and he had this incredible memory. It was similar to mine. What the mobile death squads would use him, but how they would use him, they would use his memory. They wouldn't have to write anything down. They would just give him a list of names and addresses, and he could remember. All they have to do is say, remember this. He remembered the list of names and addresses. Wow. And whenever they would need to go look for these people, for the mobile death squads, be they Jews or German dissidents, he was supposed to recall that information. But when they would go look for those dissidents, whoever was on that list that they gave to him, they could never be found. So I suspected that Klaus had something to do with that.
Angela, why don't we do this as we kind of have a small break? Let's take our break right now. We come back. Let's connect. I have a couple questions in the chat. Do you want to do those when we come back? Okay.
Sure.
Let's do that. We're talking with Angela Boley. We're talking about her I guess your mission to figure out and come to finish the mission of your past life. Frank, you're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950.
In the heart of the Northeast, there lies a hidden beast, a dragon's lair at the crossroad, guarded by the maiden Mother Crone. A treasure trove of spells galore, discover incense, books, jewelry, and more. Just as the oracles foretold, this is where your mystery unfolds. As the shadows creep and the veil gets thin, do not fear what lies within. Magus Books is where your journey begins. Visit us at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis, or online at magusbooks.com.
Hello, I'm Jody, also known as Witch Jody on social media. I opened Midwest Witchery and Healing in historic Stillwater because as a nurse, I love to help others. When you come and visit Midwest Witchery and Healing, you will find everything from divination and magical services, classes to ritual tools, jewelries, handcrafted candles, witchy gear, and much more. My store is a safe environment for all on their own unique path. Look for the purple door. Find out more at MidwestWitcheryHealing.com.
It's an absolute must for any true foodie. Vinaigrette at 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis offers premium oils and vinegars for the most discriminating of tastes. This is Sarah Piepenberg, owner of Vinaigrette. We bottle on-site, there's no guesswork, and you get to taste test each and every oil and vinegar we offer. Our direct relationship with the growers ensures an uncompromised level of satisfaction. When you need to know you're cooking with the finest ingredients, first contact the independently owned Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies tonight with a low around 25, Wednesday sunny with a high near 39, and Thursday cloudy with a high around 38. Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned restaurants and food purveyors. They feature high-quality food and unique eating experiences for your next meal. Some of those restaurants and food purveyors include 30 Bales and Latunji's Palette. Find a full list of all of our restaurants and food purveyors at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Have you checked out the new classroom expansion at Midwest Witchery and Healing in Stillwater? They are now offering more classes so you can learn tarot, astrology, herbalism, witchcraft, psychic enhancements, and so much more. Make sure to follow them on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok to be up to date on their class schedule. You go to MidwestWitcheryHealing.com and click on events and classes. Once again, they have gift cards there available as well. MidwestWitcheryHealing.com. And then join us tomorrow on Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. We're doing a replay tomorrow night, and that's going to be our episode with Father Ken Torres. We did this back in July, and he was talking about his new book, Introduction to the Demonic. It's a very informative book. It's a great conversation, especially for those of you out there who every time you go into a room that you think that you're doing a paranormal investigation, you think it's a demon. It's a very good book to kind of set you straight on that. But it's also very informed and also very accessible to anybody who needs to read it. So that's tomorrow, Friday. Adam and I will be back for our final episode of 2023 of Ghostbox Radio. And, maybe we'll end with blowing up the station or something. I don't know. I mean, who knows, right? Adam's like, you don't know. I mean, anything's possible.
It'll start fresh in 2024 with a new studio.
I mean, I'm sure they'll rebuild it by the time we come back in January.
We'll have Snap Construction do it.
Yeah, there we go. And I'm assuming we're coming back in 2024. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
oh, did you not get that memo?
Right. I mean, it's like more Matt McNeil. I don't know. So.
Patty's taking over our hour as well.
It is a 2-hour. She does a 2-hour show, so we only play one hour of them. Join us. Friday will be Casual Friday. We are talking with Angela Boley. We've been talking about the mission that it sounds like Frank, her past life, one of her past lives, that fought in World War II. That there's unfinished business with that. And just as we're in our final segment here, as we talked about at the beginning of the program, if we don't get through the whole story tonight, I didn't want to rush her. And we will bring her back in January, like the week we come back, because we want to really get through this. Because it's important to know the whole thing. But Angela, Julie has been following this along very closely, this conversation. And I don't know what this means. She's been studying this, it sounds like. So it's very fortuitous that you're talking about it and she knows it. Any Operation Paperclip defectors?
No Operation Paperclip defect, because I was killed before the Operation Paperclip.
Okay, so then with that being said, then let's pick up then where we left off. We have about 12 minutes left in the program, so why don't we pick up where we left off, Angela?
Yeah, so I went up to Klaus Baron von Brunner and I stood at attention, saluted him, and asked if I could speak with him alone. He said yes, sir. And as he was by himself, we went into a back room. And I introduced myself. I'm Frank Huff. I'm with the Allies. I'm with the OSS. We know about the work camps. We know what's happening in the work camps. Do you know what's happening in the work camps? And he says, yes, of course I know. And I'm very, very concerned. I'm Jewish.
And he hid it.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you actually look up his surname, it's a Jewish surname. I actually looked up the surname. So Brunner is a German Jewish surname. And he was very highly ranked and thought of, and he was made an SS officer, not because he hurt anybody or killed anybody. He just had such extraordinary talents. And we worked together. And one of our first missions, was instigated by him. He said, we're going to go on an excursion. I said, what's an excursion? I've never heard of that before. Mm-hmm. And there was a farmhouse that we went to that was a vacation spot for SS officers. And we actually went to this farmhouse, and it was towards the evening. And I said, if we're going to just stay for a weekend, why are we going towards the evening? He actually handed me a Ruger, and I still have my MP40. I'm like, I have my MP40. Why do I need a Ruger for? He says, just get ready to shoot as soon as possible. We actually go to this farmhouse in a Volkswagen. And he says, whatever you do, whatever car you get away with, do not pick this car. Don't pick this car. And by the way, Klaus also was fluent in English and German. So when we were in private conversation, we would speak together in English. So we get up to the farmhouse, and he gets out of the car. I get out of the car. The farmer's sitting a little far away, and he doesn't approach the farmer, but he says, how many cars do you have here? He says, there are 2. Klaus can tell by that there are 4 SS officers in the farmhouse. And as soon as I get up to the farmhouse, each of the SS officers have their own private guard. So a guard answered the door and said, you have to leave your MP40 on the porch. And I'm like, I never leave without my MP40.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even allowed in the house unless I was on invitation by other SS. And Klaus was the SS officer, so I was there on his invitation. And he says, don't worry about it. It'll be safe here. Just leave it out, leaning against the porch. I said, okay, I'll lean against the porch. We walk through the kitchen into the living room. There's 4 SS guys. Me and Klaus separate. As soon as we separate, we put our Lugers and we shoot all 4 SS. We run out. I grab my MP40 off the porch. I run to one of the cars, and there's 2 cars there. We each take a car. I take a car. None of us take the Volkswagen. We each take a Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're taking off, and we're losing daylight. And I realized why he picked that time frame, because the darkness would help us escape. And I thought, well, in the back of my mind, that farmer's going to come back and find those 4 dead guys, and he's going to make a phone call, and there's going to be cops on us. And sure enough, we were chased. But I just stayed on Klaus's tail on this. And I remember I had my MP40 sitting on the passenger seat. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to go bad for worse. I'm going to have to shoot out with the cops. And somehow we eluded them. Now, I don't remember how. I just remember that somehow that Klaus used the darkness for an advantage and the complexity of the city and all the turns that we made. And we got away. And then we reported to work the next day, and nobody suspected anything.
Wow.
And he timed this up perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we started to liberate concentration camps. I had, by that time, had moved up in rank. I had, every time I did guard duty service successfully, I got a patch. So my coat was covered in patches. And finally, I was assigned as a prison guard to concentration camps. And we would run an operation. And what would happen, first, it was a complex operation. The Allies had to get ready. And in the case, we were working with the French. So the barracks I stayed in as a German, I was mixed in with the French soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I remember my barracks. I remember Edouard, his name was Edouard Toussaint, Officer Edouard Toussaint, I became friends with, a Frenchman. I was part of the French operation. How this would work, that when the OSS contact let me know that we were ready, in the morning when I'd start duty, Klaus would brush close to me. He'd walk next to me and walk so close to me he'd almost brush my shoulder. If it was a normal day and it wasn't go time, I would just say, Guten Morgen. If it wasn't go time, or if it was go time and we were going to liberate that camp that day, I would say, Bis später. That just means see you later. And even relearning German now, and I started to relearn German for some, I had heart palpitations.
Wow.
Whenever I heard Bis später.
Wow.
Because I would,
it triggers.
Because I knew what was, I would feel this rush of fear and then excitement also. And Klaus would stay with the officers down at the hallway. And there was a very small office. So he would stay with the officers that were running the camp. I'd stay with the prisoners. I would get ready, make sure I pulled back the slide and pulled out. The MP40 had a metal handle that it would extend the stock so you could use it like a rifle. I would extend the stock out, get ready to shoot. And the prisoners start backing up, which is fine for me because that gave me room. And when the time came, Klaus would pull out his pistol and shoot all his fellow officers. And I would run out towards the entrance because the SS would come and shoot all the prisoners if they knew they were going to be liberated. So I would run out towards those SS officers and start firing. And once I've killed all the officers, Klaus would come by. I'd take all the clips out of their MP41s and hand it to him because it was the same gun. The MP41s were just had better handles or better stocks on them. They were wood stocks, but they were the same gun, so we could keep the clips. And I collected the clips, gave them to Klaus, so I could have extra clips for the next time. And so I had excellent training. All my shots were head and chest shots. I was very successful. We did this 3 times on the row. Liberated camps this way. This operation, the 4th camp, and was the camp that I was killed at, and that is the Gustweiler Huff camp that was liberated in 1944. And I remember it was a mine, like a mining camp. It was you'd actually mine rocks, you'd mine granites, and it was not a huge camp that I could remember. I saw the prisoners' faces. I remember every single face, and one of the prisoners was pregnant. She was, and I was shocked. I mean, he sent a pregnant woman here, and she was very late and about to give birth, and me and Klaus were very worried about her.
Yeah.
Klaus was in the office, and he had a prisoner in front of him, and at the time, the Germans were suspecting us, so one of the officers said to Klaus, "We know you're working with the Allies." And then Klaus got very defensive, got very angry, and started beating the prisoner he had standing in front of him. He punched him, he knocked him down, and when he was down, he kicked him, and he was bleeding from his mouth. And while this was happening, I went over to the pregnant woman and said, "Do you speak English?" She said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Do you see that man over there? You can trust him. He'll protect you." And I said, "Look, we're probably going to die for you today, and I may never see my wife again. But you save that baby.
Yeah.
You save that baby. Do everything you can." And so it was go time, and Klaus brought out his pistol, shot all the officers. He also helped the guy that he just beat to the ground stand up. He brought him to his feet. When I ran out to shoot, now remember, my shots are usually 35, 40 yards at the gate, but instead they were the feet of me, 6 or 7 feet. And all 4 SS emptied their clips into me. I shot back. I killed 2 of them, but they emptied their, and let me explain how the Germans would train their soldiers. The Germans didn't spend a whole lot of training, so they would teach their German soldiers to aim for the middle of the body, like towards the center. And where I did head and chest, they aimed towards the center. So where I was shot almost cut in half.
Yep.
Now, these are 9mm rounds. 4 clips went into me. Some went down to here, some went to my chest. And one of the soldiers that had shot me, since we were all out of clips, or out of ammo, I was going to finish me off with the butt of his gun. And I was down to one knee. And I couldn't use my other leg because I felt like a bullet had hit my spine. And he was going to hit me with the stock of his gun. And I knocked it away, and I punched him in the nose, and he got a bloody nose. And that took him back, and he ran off. The other survivors ran off. One of them was just a kid. I mean, probably no more than 14 or 15. And looked scared out of his mind when he saw me and left. And I started yelling for Klaus. Yelling for help. Klaus. Klaus was helping people, helping other prisoners get out, and he was rounding people up, leading them out, organizing and leading them out of the camp. Finally, he comes over to me, and I said, "Klaus, I can't stand up. Can you help me stand up?" He says, "No, you need to lay down." And he took my hand, and he made me lay down. So we were holding hands. And I realized that I was dying.
Yeah.
And I begged him to send a letter to my wife, and I didn't want her to just get like a regular, just generic letter, your husband's dead. I wanted Klaus to tell her everything that had happened and our relationship, and he could do this well. And I said, "It's in Wilkes-Barre," and I told him our address, and finally he said, "Yes, I will write the letter." And then at that point is when I passed. I passed away. And I ended up in the light, and I was in heaven. So I even remember my afterlife of my past life.
Your next journey. Yeah.
My next journey. And I'm sitting there, and I'm actually standing. And according to the divine being that I'm with, he says, Frank Hoff, you're the first man in all of history to survive a 0 survivability mission 3 times in a row.
Wow.
And he told, then at the end of that, he told me who Klaus got reincarnated as. He told me his name, Kim Bendix Peterson. He's known as King Diamond now. Like, I was shocked. I'm like, really, he is. But if he knew how Klaus was an overachiever, he was. In fact, when we were at the bar, and we were still together, and we were still Klaus and Frank, one of the German soldiers had confronted me and tried to out me. And he said, do you remember the bakery that used to be here? I said, bakery? I don't remember. But he said, yes, we used to come here as kids.
And Angela, I hate to do this. I have to stop us because we're running out of time here. Will you come back in January?
Yes, absolutely.
We got so much more to talk about. I'm sorry, folks. We're up against the clock. Angela Bowley, thank you so very much. We're going to continue this conversation the first week of January. Get your questions ready, folks, because there's a lot to talk about. Thank you for sharing something so personal with us.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Good night, everybody.
Hi, it's Matt McNeil. Listen to the Matt McNeil Show from